Here at Minute Rice Channel HQ, we spent almost one full year installing and removing the same set of coilovers on my BRZ and troubleshooting issue after issue. The culmination of that research is this install video.
We've worked hard to combine all there is to know about doing coilovers and end links on the GT86 platform.
We scouted forums,
YouTube,
and more importantly than any of that is we put a ton of time in underneath my BRZ to bring you this guide. So if you want to turn your car from this
to this.
That's not it.
Oh right, yeah, to this.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
To begin with, here's what you're definitely gonna need.
A jack, or scissor jacks.
Jack stands.
2, hopefully 4, it does speed things up.
A full set of metric socket wrenches from 10mm all the way up to 21mm.
A few box end wrenches from 10mm to 17mm.
A set of metric Allen keys.
A torque wrench from between 20 foot-pounds to 90 foot-pounds.
Something to chock your wheels if you're only gonna do one end at a time.
A set of punches, or large spare bolts to act as punches.
Pry bars are handy, but not necessary.
You'll either need ramps or wood planks 2x8 or 2x10 for an end link install.
Impact guns can speed things up dramatically, but use your protection.
A dead blow hammer. And don't forget the biggest tool of all, a friend.
And finally, common sense.
Because we are not at all responsible for your safety, and this is just a guide. We're giving you information and sources
that are accurate as we know them. First, measure your coils and end links. Don't forget, each car needs a good match and adjustment of both parts, so your application will be unique to your car and your setup. Now let's get into the front driver's side first. So up front, the first thing you're going to want to do is obviously loosen your lug nuts. You want to do this before you jack the car up. It's going to be impossible to get them off afterward. Next, we're going to jack the car up. Once it's up in the air, go ahead and finish removing those lug nuts, and then remove the wheels. Once the wheels are out of the way, we'll go ahead and unclip the brake line. Remove our brake line bolt. Next, we're going to loosen the bolts that connect the hub to the stock suspension.
After that, loosen and remove the end link nuts.
We'll move on to removing the hub bolts, and you're going to want to be careful with this because the hub's pretty heavy. Pay careful attention to the way that the bolts are fitted through and which holes they're going through. Go ahead and loosen the top hat bolts.
And remove the OEM front strut.
If you haven't already, go ahead and measure and adjust your new coilovers that will be replacing the OEM components. Make sure you take your time here to really dial in and get the height matched on both sides. Once you have your coilovers adjusted as you like, go ahead and feed them up through the wheel well and loosely attach them at the top hat. You're going to want to go ahead and move your brake lines and sensors out of the way. Make sure they don't get hung up on anything when the car is being driven. Next, and this is probably going to be the hardest part of the front install, you're going to want to line up the hub and feed the bolts through the new suspension. It's pretty heavy. Having that second set of hands is going to be pretty vital here.
Torque all the bolts to spec.
Go ahead and attach your new end links loosely. Go ahead and repeat what you've done here on the opposite side. Once you've completed the other side, go ahead and put the wheels back on. And lower it onto some planks, boards, something sturdy. Install the other half of your end link. Our advice is that you really tighten down the aftermarket end links. They're not an OEM part and the OEM torque specifications may not apply. Now that you've got the end links installed, go ahead and jack the car back up, remove your planks, and lower it down for reals.
Torque your lugs, and torque all bolts to spec.
And the final step for the fronts is to make sure you torque down the top hat bolts. Moving back to the rear of the car, your first step is going to be, like the front, loosen the lug nuts. Go ahead and jack the car up, remove your wheels.
Pull trunk liner carefully with a flat head or your sturdy little thumbnails.
Remove the lower bolt that holds the OEM coil into the lower control arm. Next, we're going to loosen and remove end link bolts. To remove the OEM end link, you may need to use an Allen key to stabilize the bolt as you back the nut off. Remove the lower control arm to subframe bolt. When you're removing this bolt, if it's the last bolt holding the assembly together, it may swing down with quite some force, so you may want to use a jack or just make sure everyone's out of the way. Loosen the top hat bolts in the trunk of the car.
And at this point, you should be able to remove the shock.
Like the front, we want to go ahead and adjust the ride height for the rear coilovers. Take your time, double check, make sure everything's nice and even. And feed the new coilover into the wheel well and loosely attach a top hat. Attach the rear end links like you did up front, making sure not to completely install them. And now go ahead and line up your bolt holes and reattach the lower control arm to the subframe. Then go ahead and feed the rest of the bolts through. Do the other side.
Once again, torque all the bolts to spec.
Replace your wheels, and then, like we did up front, go ahead and lower the rear of the car onto some planks or boards, something sturdy, so that you can finish installing the end links. Jack the car back up, remove your planks, and lower it back down to the ground. Once the car's back down, go ahead and torque the top hat bolts.
Torque your lug nuts and...
The final step, this is pretty critical, make sure that you develop a drinking problem, because this is probably the 6th time that you've recorded a video to try and teach people how to do this.
So there you have it. Your car should be ready to roll low like fuck yo with the best of them. And you should probably go get yourself an alignment. But if you need help troubleshooting or you just want to know more about the experience of owning a lowered 86, then stay tuned for the next episode. It covers Andrew's future plans for his car, as well as everything he's dealt with in the last year of us trying to get these coilovers right.
It sounds like you gave a little boy some wooden spoons to play on a gallon drum, basically.
Yup, sure does.